right, so we say Shabbat Shalom to the whole by Eve, that is to say, the whole house of Yasha'al, all 12 tribes, worldwide, wherever your feet are touching the soil on this most Kadush Yom. Peace and blessings to you worldwide. That is to say, Shalom and Barakut to you worldwide, wherever your feet are touching the soil on this Yom. To the elder brother, that is to say, Ak, Yahudah. To the younger brother, that is to say, Ak, Ephraim. To the former Gentile, the former stranger, the former foreigner, who is no longer estranged from the everlasting covenant, who is no longer a foreigner or a Gentile, but having received the Ruach HaKadosh, who is the Ruach of adoption, who is Yahushua HaMashiach, who is the branch. We are his branches, and whereby having received the Ruach of adoption, you have now become adopted sons, and have now been adopted, or been grafted, in some cases re-engrafted into the olive tree, that is to say, by extension, the tree of life, and whereby now you are now fellow citizens of Yasha'al, and are now privy to the same everlasting covenant and promise and inheritance that was given to Yasha'al and to Yasha'al alone. Shabbat Shalom to you worldwide, wherever your feet are touching the soil on this Yom. Welcome to YAHUAH'S Remnant Shabbat Gathering. For those of you who are on YouTube, I am Dawood Ban Yahuwah. This is my Aisha, Ashayah, Barak Yahuwah. As Shalom, she said Shalom, Barak Yahuwah. She, as usual, will be reading for Yahuwah's servant until Yahuwah heals his eyes, which we pray is soon. In his appointed time, he's spoken that he's going to heal his servant, so he's going to do it. And he's going to do it so that many of you on YouTube will believe, and so that his name is esteemed among the nations. Barak Yahuwah. Barak Yahuwah. So once more, Mashpaka, as I have previously stated, Yahuwah won't allow me to speak about anything else. He won't allow me to speak anything else other than this ancient path. Because if, and the operative word is if you have any inkling of discernment, then you understand that this is a mu'adah. That is to say, this is an appointed time. This is an appointed season. And in this appointed time, in accordance with the 7th chapter of Revelation, Yahuwah is going across the whole earth doing what? He is sealing his people. He is sealing his people with the seal of redemption. Who or what is the seal of redemption? It's not so much a what, but a who. The who is the Ruach HaKadosh. Yes, he's going about right now sealing his people, doing this great separation and making a distinction between who he is and who are not. Indeed, during this process of walking this ancient path, he has made it very simple for us to identify who he is and who are not. And he has broadened it down, or rather he has narrowed it down to 2 categories. Barak Yahuwah. And that is, either we are from above, either we are born from above, or we're born from below. Either we are the good seed of the rain, which is to say the sons of the rain, or we are of the wicked one. Either by extension now we are descendants of Cain, or we are descendants of Seth, which is properly pronounced Shaph. There is no in between. There is no in between. And so he has made it abundantly clear to us, and he's made it simple to identify who he is and who are not. And in this identification process, he has shown us that the sons of the rain are those who are what? Who are born of Ruach. Who are born of Ruach, born of Elohim. And those who are of the wicked one are those who are still of the flesh. Who are still of the flesh. They are the sons of Cain. So he has made it He has made it simple for us. He has made it very simple. He has taken out the guesswork, so we no longer have to guess who are his and who are not. And in this process, and in this process of determining again who are his and who are not, he has made it known to us that his people, that those who are born of him, are perfect. Yes, they are perfect. Indeed, that is another determining factor in determining who are his and who are not. Indeed, either we are perfect or imperfect. There is no in between. There is no in between. That takes away all the guesswork. That takes away all of the excuses. Oh, he knows me. He's working on my heart. And, it takes away all of that. All of that is thrown out of the window. Either you are or you aren't. That's it. That's it. And so in doing so, for the past 2 or 3 weeks or so, we had been in the forgotten books of Adam and Kua. And he had taken us back to the very beginning to show us that from the very beginning that his children have been perfect. And these very same traits and these very same characteristics have flowed and followed through a specific line, a specific genealogy of firstborn sons, beginning with Adam, passed down through righteous Habal, who was removed from the earth, and then passed down to another who was like Adam in the person of Seth, or more accurately called Shaph, and then passed from him down through the generations through that righteous genealogy of the sons of the rain, who were firstborn sons, all the way down through Kanuk and Methuselah and Nuach, and through Sham, and through Eber or Aber, and through Abraham, and through Itzchak, and through Yahakub, and through Yahusaph, and through Ephraim, and all the way down till we reach Yahushua HaMashiach, who too was firstborn. And all of these sons of the rain, what we have found, have had the very same characteristics. And what we have found in our study, in our look of the forgotten books of Adam and Kua, is that it was the sons of the rain, and only the sons of the rain, who were saved from the time of wrath, who were delivered from the time of wrath. That is very important to understand in this Mu'adah, because there is nothing new under the sun. And no different than the time before the flood, he is searching now across the earth, identifying his people, identifying his firstborn, to do what? To deliver this remnant as well from the time of wrath, or from the time of distress to come. And he has shown us that by following this ancient path, if we indeed follow it and walk it in Ruach and in truth, that this very path will lead us to Mount Zion. And so last Shabbat, he showed us how it ended. He showed us we got down to 8 beings who were sons of the rain. Nuach being the firstborn son, who was righteous and perfect. He showed us how, being righteous and perfect, that Nuach was saved from the time of wrath. He also pointed out his righteous servant Kanuk, who was more righteous than Nuach, and who was what? Who was redeemed from the earth. And it is Kanuk's example, that we are most interested in. Now, we're not discounting any of our righteous fathers' example, because all of these are sons of the rain. But in this Mu'adah, and how that applies to being redeemed from the earth, we are paying particular attention to Kanuk, who was what? Redeemed from the earth. Abba showed us furthermore last Shabbat how, again, there is nothing new under the sun, and how everything is lining up as it has occurred before, and how he is sealing his people now, no different than before. He is sealing a remnant to deliver them from the time of wrath. And so this week, if you are taking notes, we're once again on the ancient path. And the title of this teaching, once again, is Searching for the Ancient Path, Part 29. Searching for the Ancient Path, Part 29. colon, that's the 2 dots, colon, firstborn are perfect. Firstborn are perfect. Searching for the ancient path, part 29, colon, once again, that's the 2 dots. Firstborn are perfect. Firstborn are perfect. And so in examining and continuing this walk from looking at it from the perspective, once again, of perfection and how that applies to his firstborn, Abba wants to open up our understanding just a little bit more, so that he is ensuring that we are walking this path correctly, that we are walking this path in ruach and in truth. Now, this path is perfect. It's perfect. And if we're walking this path in ruach and in truth, then we too are perfect. We too are perfect. Barak Yahuwah. So line upon line, precept upon precept, we're going to examine this. We're going to look at perfection and how that applies to his firstborn, and how his firstborn, all his firstborn are perfect. And from there, we're going to continue. We're going to look at the example of YAHUAH'S, who is described as what? As being perfect. And so if he is described as being perfect, now we're going to look at his perfect example, of how we too should emulate that walk, his exact walk, which if we do, we are emulating the walk of the Mashiach, because he walked the same way. And more importantly, we are walking as Yahuwah himself walks. We're walking as he himself walks, as his sons and his daughters. Barak Yahuwah. Barak Yahuwah. So the first precept we're going to look at, I believe it comes to us from Hebrews chapter 12, correct, little one?
Yes.
Hebrews chapter 12, that is Abarim in the Arabic tongue. Abarim chapter 12, or Hebrews chapter 12. We're going to read verses 1 through
23.
Verses 1 through 23. Verses 1 through 23. Hebrews, Abarim, chapter 12. And we're going to read verses 1 through 23. And we'll hold up, because I know some of you are still searching the index. Go and tell the truth. Some of you still searching the index. So we'll hold up for just a minute. Barak Yahuwah. Barak Yahuwah. All right, Hebrews chapter 12, Abarim chapter 12, beginning at verse 1. Read, little one.
We too then, having so great a cloud of witnesses all around us, let us lay aside every weight and the crime which so easily entangles us.
Let us lay aside every weight and sin, a crime that so easily entangles us.
And let us run with endurance the race set before us, looking to the Prince and the Perfecter of our belief, Yahushua, who for the joy that was set before him endured the stake, having despised the shame, and sat down at the right hand of the throne of Elohim. For consider him who endured such opposition from criminals against himself, lest ye become weary and faint in your lives. You have not yet resisted unto blood, striving against crime. Okay, I'm going to read from here. Okay, I'm just reading from here.
Okay.
And you have forgotten the appeal which speaks to you as to sons. My son, do not despise the discipline of Yahuwah, nor faint when you are reproved by him. For him Yahuwah loves, he disciplines, and flogs every son whom he receives. If you endure discipline, Elohim is treating you as sons. For what son is there whom a father does not discipline? But if you are without discipline, of which all have become sharers, then you are illegitimate and not sons. Moreover, we indeed had fathers of our flesh disciplining us, and we paid them respect. Shall we not much rather be subject to the Father of roots and live? For they indeed disciplined us for a few days as seemed best to them. But he does it for our profit, so that we might share his set apartness. And indeed no discipline seems pleasant at the time, separateness, but grievous. But afterward it yields the peaceable fruit of righteousness to those who have been trained by it. So strengthen the hands which hang down and the weak knees.
Strengthen the hands that hang down and them weak, feeble knees.
And make straight paths for your feet.
And make straight paths for your feet.
Lest the lame be turned aside, but instead to be healed. Pursue shalom with all.
Pursue shalom with all. Pursue shalom with all. See, that saddens me. And this is not part of the teaching, but yeah, I guess it is, because this is a part of being a firstborn, understanding who you are. The text says to pursue shalom with all, not with some, but to pursue shalom with all, because what? We are a nation of priests, and we are to what? Take this message of reconciliations to the sons of Adam. To the sons of Adam. We are to take the good news. We are to take the Bashorah. We are to shod our feet with the preparation of the good news of the Bashorah of Shalom. And we're to take it to them, to all men. To all men, not some, not based on genealogy, not based on skin color or hair texture, not based on any of that. We are to pursue shalom with all men. This is not optional. It is not optional. And it saddens me because I don't hear this being emphasized amongst the so-called house of YAHUAH'S. We are to pursue shalom with all men. And what else?
And separateness.
And separateness, which means perfection. Perfection. We are to pursue shalom with all men, and separateness, which is to say perfection. For without which
no one shall see the master.
No one shall see the master. And so if we're not pursuing shalom with all men, because we're supposed to be messengers of reconciliation, we're supposed to be a nation of priests, to bring the light to the nations. We're supposed to be lights to the Gentiles, to bring the Bashorah, the good news to them, and to teach them Torah. This is our mandate. This is what we have been commanded to do. And we are commanded to pursue separateness, which is to say perfection, for without which no one shall see Elohim. Read.
See to it that no one falls short of the favor of Elohim, that no root of bitterness springing up causes trouble, by which many become defiled. Lest there be anyone who whores or profanes one, like Ashu, who for a single meal sold his birthright. For you know that afterward, when he wished to inherit the blessing, he was rejected.
He was rejected. We're going to talk more about him in just a little bit. He was rejected. We're going to talk more about him in just a little bit. Oh, and I can't wait. Read, little one.
For he found no place for repentance, though he sought it with tears. For you have not drawn near to a mountain touched and scorched with fire, and to blackness and darkness and storm, and a sound of a trumpet and a voice of words, so that those who heard it begged that no further word should be spoken to them. For they could not bear what was commanded. If even a beast touches the mountain, it shall be stoned or shot through with an arrow. And so fearsome was the sight that Masha said, I exceedingly fear and tremble. But you have drawn near to Mount Zion, and to the city of the living Elohim.
Oh, come on. Whoa. I want you. Ooh, come on. You drawn near to what?
To Mount Zion.
Oh, where is our hope and our expectation, Mashpaka? To get to Mount Zion. For we have drawn near to Mount Zion. Read, come on.
And to the city of the living Elohim.
And to the city of the living Elohim, which is Yerushalayim. Come on.
To the heavenly Jerusalem.
To the heavenly Jerusalem.
To myriads of messengers.
To myriads of messengers. Come on.
To the entire gathering and assembly.
To the entire, listen, to the entire gathering and assembly of what?
Of the firstborn.
Of the firstborn. Stop right there for just a minute. Because I've been telling them that unless you're born from above, you ain't no firstborn. Unless you were born from above, having a Ruach of Yahuwah inside you, you are no firstborn. And if you're not firstborn, you shall not inherit. And if you were firstborn, being born of Ruach and not of flesh, being born from Shamayim, then that means you can be perfect. Because there's nothing imperfect in Shamayim. He's been telling you. Many are going to get invited to a barbecue thinking that their genealogy means anything. It does, in the sense if you are born from above, because he has a chosen people. Yes, he does. He has a chosen people whom he has chosen to take the light of this Torah to the nations. But unless you were born from above, your genealogy means nothing. You're going to find yourself in a barbecue. Oh, I don't want to get ahead of myself. I don't want to get ahead. But we just finished talking about Esau, Ashu. Esau was firstborn according to the flesh. Yes, he was. But he will not inherit. He was firstborn according to the flesh, and Yahuwah was firstborn according to the Ruach, born from above. And he will inherit, because he was born from the Jerusalem above. The congregation, the assembly of the firstborn, is in above. Indeed, we are seated in heavenly places with him, and with this assembly of firstborn. Abba, I don't know how much longer he gonna warn you. And we're not just talking to this Zoom family, but those who are on YouTube. It's not just talking to you. All of you worldwide. Unless you are born of Ruach, you are not his firstborn, and you will not inherit. You cannot be perfect. You cannot walk this ancient path without having been born of Ruach. I want you to read that again, little one.
Okay. To the entire gathering and assembly of the firstborn.
To the entire gathering of the assembly of the firstborn. Where are they at? They're in the renewed. They're in the Jerusalem above. They're not below. The ones in the Jerusalem below, they are firstborn according to the flesh, like Esau. And they will not inherit. They will not inherit. Read, little one.
Assembly of the firstborn, having been enrolled in heaven.
Having been enrolled in Shamayim. Unless you are born of Ruach, number one, you're not firstborn, and you have not been enrolled in heaven. In other words, you have not been counted in the census. You have not been determined to be a citizen of the Jerusalem above. Indeed, we are citizens of wherever we are born at. Yes, we are. Yes, we are. If you're born in America, you're a citizen of America. You're born in London, England, you're a citizen of England. You're born in France, you're a citizen of France. We are citizens of wherever we're born. And if you're not born from above, you're not written in the books above. You're not firstborn. You ain't firstborn. And we can go through, you can go through all the wearing of your zitzits, changing your name to a Hebrew name, putting a head wrap and a turban on your head. Oh yeah. Growing your beard extra long down to your belly navel. Yeah, wearing all linen garments. You do all of that. You can speak the Hebrew language fluently. But if you ain't born from above, you're going to burn in them garments. You're going to burn in them zits. Yes, you are. You're going to be invited to a barbecue. Because only those who are born according to the Ruach are truly firstborn. And only they will inherit, because flesh and blood shall not inherit the reign of Elohim. Read, little one.
Of the firstborn having been enrolled in heaven, and to Elohim the judge of all, and to all the Ruach of righteous men made perfect.
Ooh, of the Ruach of all the righteous men made what?
Perfect.
Made what?
Perfect.
Say it again.
Perfect.
They don't believe me.
Perfect.
Some of them still don't believe it. Say it again.
Perfect.
Say, I want you to annoy them. Say it again.
Perfect.
Because they don't believe it. Say it again.
Perfect.
Say it again.
Perfect.
Oh, I want it coming out the ears, not the nostrils. Say it again.
Perfect.
Perfect. Perfect. Barak Yahuwah. And the only way to be made perfect is to be born of Ruach. Because if we're born of Ruach, we are then citizens of Shamayim, where everything is perfect. Why is this significant, Mishpaka? Because as we're going to understand that when he talks about redeeming 144,000 from earth, he coming to redeem firstfruits. What does that mean? He's coming to redeem firstborn sons. Firstborn sons who are not born of flesh and blood, but who are born of Ruach. These are all he's coming to get. Firstborn sons. Firstborn sons, that's it. Those who are firstborn sons according to genealogy or otherwise and have not been born of the Ruach, they ain't coming. They're not coming. They cannot come. He's only coming to get firstborn, of which and of whom he is going about the business now of sealing them with the Ruach HaKadosh and separating them, making a great separation in preparation to come and gather them. He ain't coming for nobody else. He's coming for firstborn. 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 Perfect ones in accordance with Revelation chapter 14. Perfect ones, blameless before the throne. Perfect ones. This is all he's coming to get. And so some are still fooling themselves, thinking that they have his Ruach, thinking that they are born from above, but your fruit testifies like otherwise. You're not. You're not. Both to you on YouTube and to you who are listening and watching me live via Zoom. Some of you are not born of Ruach and you're not firstborn sons. You're still born according to the flesh. He ain't coming to get you. He is not coming to get you. He has me stressing this because this is a muadah, an appointed time in which he is only coming to get firstborn sons, those who are enrolled on the tablets of Shamayim. Well, you say, messenger, what about the rest that survive the great distress? Well, they too are going to become firstborns. Yes, they are. When two sticks become one, and they are gathered from the four corners of the rocks, and then what? When he sprinkles clean water on them, yes, he will. When he replaces their heart of stone with a heart of flesh, and he does what? And he puts his Ruach in them. Yes. And then causes them to obey his commandments. They too are going to become firstborn, because only firstborn are going to enter. Oh, I pray that somebody gets this. Not according to the flesh, but according to the Ruach. Read, little one.
We got Exodus 4, 22 and 23.
Exodus, the 4th chapter.
22 to 23.
Verses 22 and 23. We're still talking about firstborn. Yes, we are. We're still talking about firstborn. We're still talking about how firstborn are perfect. You can't help but be perfect if you're born from above, where perfection comes from. And unless you are perfect, unless we are perfect, we're not going to Mount Zion. We're not going to be a part of the 144,000. And we're not walking this ancient path as intended. As intended. Looking now again at Exodus, Ashamut, chapter 4. And we're going to read verses 22 and 23. Exodus chapter 4, verse 22 through 23. Exodus, Shamut, chapter 4, verse 22 through 23. Read, little one.
And you shall say to Parah.
And you shall say to Parah.
Thus said Yahuwah.
Thus says Yahuwah.
Yasharel is my son.
Yasha'al is my son. Wait a minute. Yasha'al is my son. My what?
My son.
Keep reading.
My firstborn.
My firstborn. Yasha'al is my firstborn. Now, by now, you understand that this genealogy comes all the way down from Adam, who is firstborn. And so the redemption or the reconciliation of mankind, which is Adam meaning mankind, both man and woman, male and female, he made them. Mankind, Adam, is being played out within the house of Yasha'al. In order for mankind to be redeemed, they must become a part of the house of Yasha'al through the engrafting via Yahushua HaMashiach, via the receiving of his Ruach HaKadosh. But Yasha'al is his firstborn. Now the question is, who is Yasha'al? Well, Yasha'al is Yahukub. Yasha'al is Yahukub. Yes, he is. Yes, it is. Yasha'al is Yahukub. This is why in the wilderness, and I believe around Numbers, the 22nd chapter, or it may have been around the 23rd chapter of Numbers, that Balaam, that wizard, when he was speaking a barakah or a barakut, which is to say blessing, over Yasha'al, he said, Abba, Yahuwah has found no guile in Yasha'al. He's found no guile in him. Do you think he was talking about the multitude? No. He was talking about Yahukub. He was talking about Yahukub, who was what? Who was perfect. Yes, he is. Yes, he was. He was perfect. He was perfect. And so when we speak of Yasha'al, we are speaking of Yahukub, born not of flesh, but of Ruach. It's important that you get this, because unless you are born of Ruach, you're not Yasha'al. No, you're not. No, you're not. When we speak of Yasha'al, we're speaking of Yahukub, who was perfect, who was born not of flesh, but of Ruach. It is these who are his firstborn. And it is these who are perfect. And it is these who will enter in. Read, little one.
So I say to you, let my son go to serve me.
Let my son go to serve me.
But if you refuse to let him go.
But if you refuse to let him go.
See, I am killing your son.
See, I am killing your son.
Your firstborn.
Your firstborn. So now, what we find here is a dynamic playing out here. What we have here is a dynamic playing out. We have the firstborn, according to the Ruach, which is Yahukub, which is Yasha'al. And we have the firstborn according to the flesh, which is portrayed here as Egypt, as Mitzrayim, because Egypt represents what? Egypt represents the flesh. Egypt represents bondage and slavery, which is the flesh. Egypt represents crime, represents sin, which is enacted in the flesh. Which is enacted in the flesh. Oh, yes, it does. It wars in your members. Yes, it does. Yes, it does. So Egypt represents the flesh. It represents the firstborn according to the flesh. Now, what happened? What happened? The same thing that happened during the flood. The firstborn who according to the flesh. Who was the firstborn according to the flesh? Cain. Yes, he was. He was the firstborn son of Adam, born according to the flesh. Habal was born according to the Ruach. And so was Seth. He too was born according to the Ruach, and he too was perfect. And so no different than the flood, the firstborn born according to the flesh, which were the descendants of Cain, they perished, they died. No different than we see what's being played out here in Egypt. The firstborn of Cain, the firstborn born according to the flesh, they died. The firstborn according to the Ruach, they lived. This is the dynamic that's still being played out. This is the dynamic that's being played out that Abba is showing us. There's only two manner of people. Either you're born firstborn according to the flesh, or firstborn according to the Ruach. Either you're born from above or you're born from below. And in this Muadah, in this appointed time, he is coming back for his firstborn son. Those who are born according to the Ruach, those who have been sealed with the seal of redemption, who have been sealed and who will be kept from the hour of trial. When he comes back after the great distress, he's also coming back for his firstborn. But before they're allowed to come into the land, he's going to do what? Again, wash them with, sprinkle clean water on them, replace their heart of stone with a heart of flesh, and put his Ruach in them, and cause them to keep his commandments. Yes, he is. Yes, he is. And so we see a dynamic once more being played out. The firstborn of Egypt died. Because they were according to the flesh. Firstborn according to the flesh. And the firstborn according to the Ruach, they lived. Those born from above being perfect, walking this ancient path, this path of perfection, turning neither to the right or to the left of it, but obeying every word that proceeds from the mouth of our Father. Read, little one.
We have Exodus 13, 1 through 13.
Exodus chapter 13 now. Line upon line, precept upon precept. Exodus chapter 13. Shamuk chapter 13. Exodus chapter 13. Verses 1 through 13. Come on, y'all. You was just at Exodus chapter 4. You ain't got to go to the index. Come on. Barak Yahuwah. All right, Barak Yahuwah. Exodus chapter 13, verse 1 through 13. Beginning at verse 1, we read.
And Yahuwah spoke to Moshe, saying,
And Yahuwah spoke to Moshe, saying,
Separate to me all the firstborn.
Listen, separate unto me all the firstborn.
The one opening the womb.
The one opening the womb.
Among the children of Yasharel.
Among the children of Yasharel.
Among man and among beast.
Among man and among beast.
It is mine.
It is mine. It is mine. Read.
And Moshe said to the people, Remember this day in which you went out of Mitzrayim.
Remember this day in which you went out of Mitzrayim. Read.
Out of the house of slavery.
Out of the house of slavery.
For by strength of hand.
For by strength of hand.
Yahuwah brought you out of this place.
Yahuwah brought you out of this place.
And whatever is leavened.
And whatever is leavened.
Shall not be eaten.
Shall not be eaten. In other words, there's no sin or crime to be found in your houses. Read.
Today you are going out in the new month, Abib. And it shall be when Yahuwah brings you into the land of the Canaanites, and the Hittites, and the Amorites, and the Kawites, and the Yebusites, which he swore to your father to give you a land flowing with milk and honey, that you shall keep this service in this new month. 7 days you eat unleavened bread, and on the 7th day it is a festival to Yahuwah. Unleavened bread is to be eaten the 7 days, and whatever is leavened is not to be seen with you. And leaven is not to be seen with you within all your borders. And you shall inform your son in that day, saying,
Listen.
It is because of what Yahuwah did for me when I came up from Mitzrayim. And it shall be as a sign to you on your hand, and as a reminder between your eyes, that the Torah of Yahuwah is to be in your mouth. For with a strong hand Yahuwah has brought you out of Mitzrayim, and you shall guard this law at its appointed time from year to year. And it shall be when Yahuwah brings you into the land of the Canaanites, as he swore to you and your fathers, and gives it to you, that you should give over to Yahuwah everyone opening the womb.
Everyone opening the womb.
And every firstborn that comes from your livestock.
And every firstborn that comes from your livestock.
The males belonging to Yahuwah.
The male belong to Yahuwah.
But every firstborn of a donkey.
But every firstborn of a donkey, a stiff-necked, stubborn donkey.
You are to ransom with a lamb.
You are to ransom with a lamb.
And if you do not ransom it.
You break his stiff neck. Read.
You shall break its neck.
You break his stiff neck. Yes.
And every firstborn of man among your sons.
Listen.
You are to ransom.
Every firstborn among your sons, you are to redeem. You are to redeem. You see, this is what we're talking about. Revelation 14. Speaking of the 144,000, these were those who have been redeemed from the earth. Here we see in the Torah that what? He only redeems firstborn sons. He has then opened this up a little further for us in showing us that you are not a firstborn son unless you've been born from above. And these are the ones in which he's going about now sealing with the seal of redemption. He ain't sealing everybody. He's not sealing everybody. Either you're firstborn according to the flesh or you are firstborn according to the spirit. Again, in the dynamic of Egypt, we see the firstborn according to the flesh dying and the firstborn according to the Ruach being allowed to live. Being allowed to live. But getting back here, he only redeems firstborn sons. He don't redeem anybody else. And in this Muadah, he is only coming to redeem firstborn sons who were born according to the Ruach. Read, little one.
We're at Ephesians 4:30 to 32.
Ephesians chapter 4. Ephesians chapter 4. Ephesians chapter 4. He's only coming to redeem firstborn sons. Those who are perfect. Those who are walking the path of perfection, the ancient path, turning neither to the right or to the left of it. And for those who are female kind, who are wondering about this, in a census, according to the Torah, when a census is taken, womankind are never counted. It's all about, I'm not being a male chauvinist, but it's all about men. It's all about men. You're being redeemed, and one day you too are going to be neither male or female. We're all going to be sons. But right now, you must submit and find your place. And so for now, only men are counted in census. But that doesn't mean that the women who are born according to Ruach, who are born from above, are not going to go with the 144,000. The 144,000 is only the count of men. That does not count the women and the little children and the strangers who are joined to the 144,000. Barak Yahuwah. Barak Yahuwah. Ephesians chapter 4. Verses
30 to 32.
Verses 30 to 32. Read.
And do not grieve the Kadush Rook of Elohim.
And do not grieve the Kadush Rook of Elohim.
By whom you were sealed for the day of redemption.
For whom you were sealed for the day of redemption. This is the seal of redemption. He is the seal of redemption. He is the seal in which Yahuwah is going about sealing his people with in this Muadah. And those who are sealed with the Ruach HaKadosh, who have been determined to be firstborn, who are written in the tablets of Shamayim, who are perfect and who are walking perfectly, it is these who are going to be saved from the hour of trial, from the proverbial floodwaters that is soon to come upon the earth. Read, little one.
Let all bitterness,
and wrath,
and displeasure,
and uproar,
and slander, be put away from you, along with all evil, and be kind towards one another,
tenderhearted,
forgiving one another, as Elohim also forgave you, in Mashiach.
Barak Yahuwah. Give us another precept, Barak Yahuwah.
Leviticus 1 through 13.
Leviticus chapter 1. Leviticus chapter 1, Barak Yahuwah. That immediately follows Exodus. You don't have to go to your index. Leviticus chapter 1. Uikra. Chapter 1. Now we've determined in Exodus chapter 13 that the firstborn are to be separated. All the first that splits the womb, both of man and beast, are YAHUAH'S. They are his. But the firstborn of man, you are to redeem. You are to redeem his firstborn sons, those who are perfect. Born not of flesh, not of blood, but of Ruach. These are his firstborn sons, and these are the ones that are going to be redeemed, both in this Muadah and after the great distress. Leviticus chapter 1, Uikra, Leviticus chapter 1, verses 1 through 13, beginning at verse 1. We read here.
And Yahuwah called to Moshe and spoke to him from the tent of appointment.
And Yahuwah called to Moshe and spoke to him from the tent of appointment, saying,
Speak to the children of Yasharal.
Speak to the children of Yasharal.
And say to them, when any of you brings an offering to Yahuwah.
When any of you brings an offering to Yahuwah, now he just specified that we are to what? Separate all the firstborn. So all of these offerings are from the firstborn. We've established that in Exodus chapter 13. All of these offerings are from the flock of the herd of the firstborn. Read, little one.
You bring your offering of the livestock.
You bring your offering of the livestock.
Of the herd.
Or
of the flock.
Of the flock.
If his offering is an ascending offering of the herd.
If his offering is an ascending offering of the herd.
Let him bring a male.
A
perfect one.
A perfect one. I told you we have to be perfect. Now the dynamic that is being played out here, is a judgment that is being played out, a judgment that is being fulfilled. What judgment are you speaking of, messenger? The judgment that was pronounced over Adam in the very beginning. And that is that the day that you partake of this fruit is the day that you're going to die, Adam. It's the day that you are going to die. And so, to accomplish this judgment, because his judgments are eternal, to accomplish this judgment, we see a dynamic being played out here. The firstborn of animals, a perfect one, who was and is a representation of us. a perfect one. As he is to be perfect, we are to be perfect, because he represents us. You are to take the perfect, blemishless blood of an animal, and you are to slaughter that animal so that my judgment is carried out, so that my judgment is being fulfilled. And as my judgment is being played out and fulfilled in this animal, then as my judgment is being played out, I'm going to allow you to live. I'm going to allow my firstborn to live, because my judgment is being played out in this animal. You see, they were a foreshadowing of the HaMashiach. They were caretakers. They were caretakers until true perfection came. We're going to talk more about this. Until true perfection came. The perfect, innocent, blemishless blood of a perfect one had to die. It had to die. They had to be perfect. They had to be perfect one, and they had to die because of the judgment that was spoken by the mouth of Yahuwah. It couldn't be one that was blemished. It had to be perfect. It had to go through life and be perfect and be blemishless, and then die in that form. It could not sin. It could not commit crime, because Adam was born perfect. Yes, he was. Adam was born perfect. He was not born of flesh and blood. He was born of Elohim. Yahusha, coming as the second Adam, was not born of flesh and blood, but born of Elohim, so that he was not defiled by human seed. He had to be perfect, and he had to walk perfectly, so as to and die, and so as to fulfill the judgment of death, and so as dying as a blemishless, perfect, spotless lamb. When he died, what did Yahuwah say? I will not allow my righteous servant to see degradation. He right ruled. He right ruled because a righteous one had died. Because a righteous one had died without crime, without blemish, and he died, he said, no, I ain't gonna let my righteous one see corruption. And so now, he having fulfilled the judgment, the righteous judgments, those who are in him, he in us and us in him, because the righteous judgment has been fulfilled, his firstborn now can live, because the firstborn died. Yes, he did. The judgment was carried out. The firstborn died, and now the firstborn can live. I pray you're understanding. Now the firstborn can live, but that firstborn had to be perfect. He had to be perfect. He is perfect. All firstborn are perfect. And even though there was a spotless, blemishless animal taking the part of the firstborn of man, the firstborn of man yet still was not released from being perfect. He still had to be perfect. He still had to be perfect. He still had to be perfect. He still had to walk perfectly, as all firstborn sons do. He still had to walk perfectly. Yet in his perfection, he was defiled because of the flesh of man. He was defiled because of the flesh of man until perfection came, when Abba came as a man and he died as a man, so that the judgment was now complete. And so now, those of us now who are not born of flesh and blood, but who are born of Ruach, having a Ruach of Yahusha inside of us, we are now born in like manner as Adam was born, not by the hands of men, not by flesh and blood, but by the hand of Elohim, and who are born like Yahusha, not born via flesh and blood, or not conceived via flesh and blood, but conceived via the Ruach. We now are perfect because a perfect offering has been offered for us. A perfect offering has been offered for us. And now we are to walk in the newness of life, in perfection, walking in the newness of life as citizens of above. As citizens of above, no longer walking as citizens of below. And if we do so, we shall be redeemed. we shall be redeemed. Read, little one. We must be perfect.
Let him bring it at the door of the tent of appointment for his acceptance before Yahuwah. And he shall lay his hands on the head of the ascending offering, and it shall be accepted on his behalf to make atonement for him. And he shall slay the bull before Yahuwah. And the sons of Aharon, the Kohanim, shall bring the blood and sprinkle the blood and all around on the slaughter place, which is at the door of the tent of appointment. And he shall skin the ascending offering and cut it into pieces. And the son of Aharon, the priest, shall put fire on the slaughter place and lay the wood in order on the fire. And the sons of Aharon, the priest, shall arrange the pieces with the head and the fat on the wood which is on the fire on the slaughter place. But his entrails and his legs he washes with water. And the priest shall burn all of it on the slaughter place as an ascending offering, an offering made by fire, a sweet fragrance to Yahuwah. And if his offering is from the flock, from the sheep, or from the goats as an ascending offering, let him bring a male, a perfect one.
A what?
A male, a perfect one.
A perfect one, who is a representation of us. We must be perfect. There had to be a perfect offering. It could have been a blemishless offering. That's beside the point. You need a perfect offering to take the place of the blemished one, so that the blemished one could live. So that the blemished one could live, and so that his righteous son would not see corruption. So that the judgment was played out, the judgment being death, and he dying. And thus the judgment being played out, and thus Yahuwah having compassion and saying, I will not allow my righteous one to see corruption. And thus you have the resurrection. Thus now you have the resurrection. I am the resurrection and the life. Those who believe in me, yet they die, they shall live. They shall live. Those who are not born of flesh and blood, but who are born of Ruach, who are born of Ruach, who are born perfectly, who are reborn in the same manner in which Adam was born, and in the same manner of which Yahushua was born, being perfect. Even if these die, they shall live, because the judgment has been played out. He walked perfectly, without crime, and he died, and Abba said, no, he's righteous. I'm not going to allow my righteous one to see corruption. He was raised from the dead, and as he was raised from the dead, the rest of his righteous brothers shall live as well. Barak Yahuwah. Read, little one.
And he shall slay it on the north side of the slaughter place before Yahuwah. And the sons of Aharon, the priest, shall sprinkle its blood on the slaughter place all around. And he shall cut it into pieces with its head and its fat. And the priest shall arrange them on the wood which is on the fire on the slaughter place. But the entrails and the legs he washes with water. And the priest shall bring it all and burn it on the slaughter place. It is an ascending offering, an offering made by fire, a sweet fragrance to Yahuwah.
Barak Yahuwah. So we must be perfect. We've got to be perfect. A perfect offering wasn't given for us, who represented us, just for us to remain in imperfection. No, he was us. He was us, so that we could be him. Barak Yahuwah. He was us so that we could be him, perfect like him. He did not die for us to remain in imperfection, because his firstborn are perfect. He required a perfect offering. The perfect offering of a firstborn. All of his firstborn are perfect. Adam was born perfect. He was born perfect. Yahushua was born perfect and remained perfect. Where the first Adam sinned, the second Adam succeeded. He succeeded. And now those of us who have been reborn in a like manner in which they were born, being born in perfection, being born from Shamayim, walking in this manner, not only are we going to be redeemed in this season, but we're going to live. We're going to live. Barak Yahuwah. Read, little one.
You got Romans 8, 1 through 9.
Romans 8, 1 through 9. Romans 8, 1 through 9. Romans 8, 1 through 9. He's coming back in this Mu'adah to get his firstborn. His perfect firstborn. His perfect firstborn. Only these is he coming to remove from the time of trial that is soon to come upon this earth in this Muadah. Romans 8, verses 1 through 9. Romans 8, verses 1 through 9. Read, little one.
There is then now no condemnation to those who are in Mashiach Yahusha, who do not walk according to the flesh.
Who do not walk according to the flesh as the first Adam, or as those, or as firstborn of the flesh, but
according to the Ruach.
But according to the Ruach.
For the Torah of the Ruach of the life in Mashiach Yahusha has set me free from the Torah of crime and of death.
Of Egypt, from Egypt, he has set me free from bondage. He has set me free from death. Egypt represents death. Egypt represents bondage. Egypt represents the firstborn according to the flesh. Egypt represents Cain. Egypt represents Esau. Egypt represents all of the firstborn who are born according to the flesh. Yes, it does. Yes, it does. Read, little one.
For the Torah being powerless, in that it was weak through the flesh, Elohim having sent his own son in the likeness of flesh of crime, and concerning crime, condemned crime in the flesh.
He satisfied the judgment. He satisfied the judgment. What crime? What crime? When Adam partook of the fruit. He took the bullet. When Adam partook of the fruit. He walked perfectly, and an innocent man died. An innocent, perfect, blemishless man died, so that the judgment was fulfilled. So that the judgment of death was fulfilled, and so that now what? So that Adam can live. They saw the same dynamic playing out with the animals. When the animals died, so that Adam could live. I told you that this dynamic of redeeming Adam is being played out in YAHUAH'S. The firstborn of animal, a perfect animal, died so that Adam could live. The second Adam, perfect, blemishless, fulfilling the requirements of Torah, for transgressing the Torah, which is death. He came in the volume of the book and redeemed those, and redeemed Adam, redeemed his firstborn, in accordance with Torah. Indeed, no one can be redeemed outside of Torah. No one on earth can be redeemed outside of Torah. All must be redeemed in accordance with Torah. All must be redeemed in accordance with Torah. Read, little one.
So that the righteousness of the Torah should be completed in us, who do not walk according to the flesh.
Who do not walk according to the flesh.
But according to the Ruach.
But according to the Ruach.
For those who live according to the flesh set their minds on the matters of the flesh. But those who live according to the Ruach, the matters of the Ruach. For the mind of the flesh is death.
Yes.
But the mind of the Ruach is life and shalom.
Those of the firstborn of Egypt are going to die. The firstborn Cain and Esau, they're going to die. He only redeems firstborn sons, and his firstborn sons are not born of flesh, but born of Ruach. Read.
Because the mind of the flesh is enmity towards Elohim.
Yes.
For it does not subject itself to the Torah of Elohim. Neither indeed is it able.
Neither indeed is it able.
And those who are in the flesh are unable to please Elohim. But you are not in the flesh, but in the Ruach.
But you are not in the flesh, but in the Ruach.
If indeed the Ruach of Elohim dwells in you.
If indeed the Ruach of Elohim dwells in you.
And if anyone does not have the Ruach of Mashiach.
And if anyone does not have the Ruach of Mashiach.
This one is not his.
This one is not his. You're not born from above. You're not a firstborn son. And he don't have to redeem you. He didn't come to redeem nobody else. Those sacrifices were only for firstborn sons. Period. Those sacrifices were not for anyone else but firstborn sons. And so again, in this Muadah, he is only coming to redeem firstborn sons from the earth, to deliver them from the hour of trial. Only those having the Ruach of Yahuwah inside of them, having been born from above, having been enrolled in the assembly of firstborn in Shamayim. Only these is he coming back to get, to deliver from the hour of trial. Read, little one.
Yeah, Matthew 1:18 to 25.
Matthew 1, Matthew chapter 1, verses 18
to 25.
through 25. Matthew chapter 1, verses 18 through 25. Matthew chapter 1, verses 18 through 25. Matthew chapter 1, verses 18 through 25. Beginning at verse 18. Read.
But the birth of Yahushua Mashiach was as follows. After his mother Mariam was engaged to Yahusuf, before they came together, she was found to be pregnant from the separate ruach.
From the separated ruach. She was found to be pregnant by the separated ruach. So he was not conceived by the seed of man. He had to be what? Perfect. Yes, he did. He had to be perfect. Was not Adam born perfect? Yes, he was. He was conceived and born of Elohim. And he came as the second Adam in like manner as the first Adam. And we too, in like manner, in order to be perfect, have to be conceived and reborn in the same manner in which they were conceived and born. Otherwise, we are not firstborn. This all goes back to Adam, who was firstborn. This all goes back to him. Yahushua is also firstborn. He had to be firstborn because he came as the second Adam. And so us and him and us, now being reborn and being conceived and reborn in the same manner in which they were born, not of flesh and blood, because if we are of flesh and blood, we're imperfect. We're imperfect because the seed of man is imperfect. And so we must be born of Ruach in order now to be perfect. We must. Otherwise, we're not going to be redeemed from the hour of trial. We're not going to be redeemed. And he is going to make those perfect who are imperfect during the hour of trial. But they won't become firstborn sons until after the great distress, when he sprinkles clean water on them and removes their heart of flesh and removes their heart of stone and replaces it with a heart of flesh and puts his ruach in them. Read, little one.
And Yahusuf, her husband, being righteous and not wishing to make a show of her, had in mind to put her away secretly. But while he thought about this, see, a messenger of Yahuwah appeared to him in a dream, saying, Yahusuf, son of Daud, do not be afraid to take Mariam as your wife, for that which is in her was brought forth from the Kadush root.
For that which is in us, which was in her, was brought forth from the Kadush Ruach.
And she shall give birth to a son.
And she shall give birth to a son.
And you shall call his name Yahusha.
And you shall call his name Yahusha.
For he shall save his people from their crimes.
For he shall save his people from their crimes. He shall deliver us from Egypt. He shall deliver us from the bondage of the flesh and dust. Whom the Son sets free is free indeed. How? By sending forth his Ruach. Read, little one.
And all this came to be in order to fulfill what was spoken by Yahuwah through the prophet, saying,
Yes.
See, and Alma shall conceive and shall give birth to a son.
Yes.
And they shall call his name Emmanuel, which translated means all with us. And Yahusuf, awakening from his sleep, did as the messenger of Yahuwah commanded him, and took his wife.
Yes.
But he knew her not until she gave birth to her son, the firstborn.
The what?
The firstborn.
The what?
The firstborn. And he called his name Yahusha.
And he called his name Yahusha. I told you, in order to be considered firstborn, you've got to be conceived and born like Adam, who was conceived and born of Elohim. We've got to be like the second Adam, Yahusha, who was conceived and born of Elohim. Otherwise, you still have the imperfect seed of man in you. And the only way to be perfect and to be a firstborn is to be born in like manner, to be reborn in a like manner, to be born from Shamayim, whereby now we are enabled to walk this ancient path, whereby now he has written his Torah upon our hearts, circumcised our hearts, and given us a willingness to obey your Torah, to obey his Torah, and a love for it. He's only coming back to redeem firstborn. That's Torah. That's Torah. Exodus chapter 13 is only coming back in this Muadah to get his firstborn sons. And he's going about right now sealing his firstborn sons with the seal of redemption. Read, little one.
Colossians 1, 12 through 17.
Colossians 1, 12 through 17. Colossians 1, 12 through 17. Colossians 1, 12 through 17. Line upon line, precept upon precept. Cure a little, dare a little. Colossians 1, 12 through 17. Beginning at verse 12. Read, little one.
Give thanks to the Father, who has made us fit to share in the inheritance of the Kadosh ones.
Who has made us fit to share in the inheritance. The operative word is inheritance. We're talking about Torah. We're talking about the law of inheritance, which only the firstborn son gets. That is to say that the firstborn son gets the possessions of his father. So the only way for us to get the inheritance of our father Yahuwah is to be his firstborn son. And that is to be born from his loins, not of flesh and blood, but of Ruach. And in this season, he is coming back to get a remnant of firstborn sons, those who have been sealed with the seal of redemption, the Ruach HaKadosh, who are walking in perfection to save them from the hour of trial. He's only coming to get them. That's Torah, I told you. He only redeems firstborn sons. He only redeems firstborn sons. Read, little one.
Made us fit to share in the inheritance of the Kadosh ones in the light, who has delivered us from the authority of darkness and transferred us into the reign of the Son of his love.
In other words, he's delivered us from Egypt and transferred us into the reign of his love via his righteous Ruach. Read.
In whom we have redemption through his blood.
And whoa, here's that word redemption again. Here's that word redemption again. I told them he only redeems firstborn sons. Here's that word redemption again. Redeemed under the Torah, where the Torah states what? He only redeems firstborn sons. That's Torah. All must submit to Torah. None are above Torah. None are above the Torah. All must be redeemed in accordance with the Torah. And in accordance with Torah, he only redeems firstborn sons. Read, little one.
In whom we have redemption through his blood, the forgiveness of crimes.
Yes.
Who is the likeness of the invisible Elohim, the firstborn of all creation.
The what?
The firstborn of all creation.
I told you he was firstborn, and we've already read how he was conceived. And we know how Adam was conceived. Not of flesh and blood, but by the hand of Elohim. And thus we are to be conceived and reborn in a like manner. Otherwise, we're not firstborn. So here it states that he's the firstborn of all creation. Did not Abba say that separate unto me all firstborn, both man and beast, because they are mine? And so he came as a blemishless, perfect sacrifice for both man and beast. For both man and beast, for all creation. And for those of you who are listening via YouTube, who may be abusing animals, you're not going to be held guiltless. Because here he says he came the firstborn of all creation. He died for both man and beast. Yes, he loves his whole creation. And you ain't going to be held guiltless if you are listening under the sound of my voice and you are abusing animals. Nevertheless, he is firstborn. And he was perfect. He was perfect. And if we aspire to be firstborn, we too must be perfect. And the only way to be perfect is to be born from Shamayim. Read, little one.
Because in him were created all that are in the heavens.
Yes.
And that are on the earth.
Yes.
Visible and invisible.
Yes. Whether
thrones or rulerships.
Yes.
Or principalities or authorities. All have been created through him.
Yes.
And for him. And he is before all. And in him all hold together.
Barak Yahuwah. Barak Yahuwah. Barak Yahuwah. Next precept, little one.
You got it. Hosea 11:1.
Hosea 11:1. Hosea 11:1. Hosea 11:1. Hosea 11:1. Hosea 11:1. Read, little one.
When Yasharel was a child, I loved him.
When Yashar'al was a child, I loved him.
And out of Mitzrayim I called my son.
And out of Mitzrayim I called my son. So once again here we find that Yashar'al, which is Yaakov, is his son. When Yaakov was a child, or Yashar'al was a child, he loved him, and out of Mitzrayim he called his son. Now, he only has one son, and that son is Adam. That son is Adam, and by extension, that righteous genealogy, that line goes all the way down to Yashar'al, who is his son, who is a representation of Adam, and we see the reconciliation of mankind being played out within the house of Yashar'al. So Hosea 11:1, when Yashar'al was a child, I loved him, and out of Mitzrayim I called my son. He only has one son. He only has one son. For those of you who struggle with the Trinity, who struggle with understanding that Yahuwah is Yahuwah, and that he created a body for himself in order to come as his son, who is Yashar'al, who is Yaakov, and by extension, that is Adam. He came for Adam, for mankind. He came for Adam. So when Yashar'al was a child, I loved him, and out of Mitzrayim I called my son. Read, little one.
And when they had left, see, a messenger of
Matthew
Yahuwah,
chapter
2:13 through 15.
Matthew chapter 2, 13 through 15. Matthew chapter 2, verse 13 through 15. Matthew chapter 2, verse 13 through 15. Matthew chapter 2, verse 13 through 15. Beginning at verse 13. Read, little one.
And when they had left, see, a messenger of Yahuwah appeared to Yahusuf in a dream, saying, Arise, take the child and his mother, and flee to Mitzrayim, and remain there until I bring you word for Herodes is about to seek the child to destroy him. And rising up, he took the child and his mother by night, and departed for Mitzrayim, and remained there until the death of Herodes, to fulfill what was spoken by Yahuwah through the prophet, saying, Out of Mitzrayim I have called my son.
Out of Mitzrayim I have called my son. Yashar'al is his only son. He came as Yashar'al, and by extension he came as Adam. And so what we see here is two dynamics. It's really one dynamic, but we see it being played out in two different ways. So Yahuwah came in the flesh to do what? To die in accordance with Torah as firstborn, in order to what? In order to redeem his firstborn son of man. In order to redeem the firstborn son of man. And so we see two dynamics being played out. He came as the second Adam, and he walked as the second Adam. But where the second Adam committed crime, but where the first Adam committed crime, the second Adam, being perfect, did not. He then took the judgment, the punishment, which was, in the day that you partake of this fruit, Adam, is the day that you will die. So he came as firstborn, first as Adam, and by extension as Yashar'al, as we read here. Because he also then walked in the footsteps of Yashar'al. Because as Yashar'al went down to Egypt, he went down to Egypt. When Yashar'al was called out of Egypt, as Yashar'al was called out of Egypt, he was called out of Egypt. Out of Egypt I called my son. As Yashar'al was then, as Yashar'al then left Egypt and was immersed into the waters of Masha, Yahusha went into the wilderness and was immersed by Yahuchanan the immerser. After which, after being immersed in the waters of Masha, what happened? Yashar'al went into the wilderness. What happened when Yahusha was immersed? He went into the wilderness. When Yashar'al went into the wilderness, they went into the wilderness for 40 years. Yahusha went into the wilderness for 40 days and 40 nights. And so what we're finding here is two dynamics. Him, the creator of all things, creating a body for himself, and coming as his son, as his firstborn, walking perfectly, and then taking the judgment. What judgment? I told you it was the judgment of Adam partaking of the fruit. This judgment was passed down to all mankind. But it is being played out. This dynamic is being played out in Yashar'al. And so he walked perfectly, so that what? And died perfectly as us. As us, he died perfectly, Now Yahuwah, looking at a perfect offering who walked perfectly before him, said what? I will not allow my son to suffer corruption. And so now his son, who died righteously, because us and him and us, because when we are immersed with him, we are impaled with him and buried with him and resurrected to the newness of life. And so now his son, his righteous son, if you have been born of Ruach, shall live. It is the spirit that gives life. The flesh profits nothing. The flesh profits nothing. And so you have two dynamics. Again, you have the firstborn according to the flesh, which is a representation of Cain, a Cain, which is a representation of Esau, of Ashu. All of these were firstborn according to the flesh. Reuben was firstborn according to the flesh, but Yahusha was firstborn according to the Ruach. Yishmael was firstborn according to the flesh. Yitzchak was firstborn according to the Ruach. Only those who are born according to the Ruach will inherit. Indeed, in Ishmael he says, for the son of the slave woman will by no means inherit with my son. No, the firstborn according to the flesh will not inherit, he will die. The same was spoken of Esau. He's firstborn according to the flesh, and he's going to die. He will not live. Only the firstborn according to the Ruach will live. And thus again we find this dynamic in Egypt, where the firstborn according to the flesh died, and the firstborn, his firstborn son, Yasha'al, Yahuwah, lived. And so unless we are born or reborn in like manner, we're not perfect, we're not his sons, we're not his daughters, and we will not be redeemed, because he only in accordance with Torah redeems firstborn sons during the hour of trial. He demands perfection. He demands that we be perfect. He demands it. And unless we are perfect, which is impossible unless we are born from above, we will not be redeemed. We will not be redeemed. Barak Yahuwah. Barak Yahuwah. And so now that Abba has established that, Abba has established that the only way to be a firstborn son is to be born of Ruach. And now that you understand that all who carried the distinction of firstborn, beginning with Adam, who was born of Elohim, and his subsequent sons who were firstborn, were all born of Ruach. And this is why Noach was redeemed from that hour of trial from the flood waters, because he was firstborn. He was righteous and he was perfect, as the scriptures declare. He was righteous and he was perfect. And this is why Canuk was redeemed from the earth, because he was righteous and he was perfect. He was righteous and perfect. And so now, continuing this ancient path, how we looking for time, little one?
Hour and 17 minutes.
Hour and 17 minutes. We're not gonna finish this today. We're not gonna finish this today, but we're gonna take a look at the walk of Yahuwah, whom has been established is Yasha'al, his firstborn son. And as we're going to read here, Yahuwah has been declared as being what? As being perfect. The Hebrew word that we've read is Tom, Talmam, which the Tal being indicative of covenant and Mom being indicative of spirit. You can't be a son without having his spirit. You can't be in covenant with him without having his Ruach. Tom means what? It means to be perfect. It means to be perfect. It also means to be gentle and meek and humble and mild. See, all of this is a part of being perfect. Being gentle, being meek, being mild, being humble, being lamb-like is a part of being perfect, in which Yahuwah, again, is described as being perfect. And now we understand that because he was described as being perfect, we understand now that he was firstborn according to the Ruach, and whereas Esau, or Ashu, was firstborn according to the flesh. And all those who are boasting again in genealogy, talking about who you are, not having this Ruach, you don't belong to him. As we just read in Romans chapter 8, verse 9, you're not his. You are firstborn according to the flesh. You belong to Hashatan. You are his son. You are his children. You are seed of the wicked one, and you will not inherit. I don't care how long your zitzits are. I don't care how long your name change is. I don't care how much of the Hebrew tongue you speak. you will not inherit. You will not inherit, and you're going to stay here. You're going to be left here during the time of the great distress, thinking that you are going to escape YAHUAH'S trouble or YAHUAH'S distress, thinking that you're going into the wilderness. No, only the remnant within the remnant, only his firstborn sons are going into the wilderness. Where the adversary, whom the adversary is going to chase, and who, when he cannot overcome them, he's going to turn and go to the remnant of their seed, the 6 assemblies that are left, those who are the firstborn of the flesh, to be tried and refined and purified in the fires of the great tribulation, so that the perfect, so that the imperfect can be made perfect, so that when he gathers them, then he can sprinkle his clean water on them and remove the stony places in the heart and give them a heart of flesh and put his ruach in them. And so now we're going to take a brief look now at YAHUAH, who is perfect. And we're going to look at his walk. We're going to look at his lifestyle. And we're going to pattern our lives after his life, which in turn is going to line our lives up in this ancient path with the walk of Yahushua. And it's going to align our lives and our walk with the walk of Yahuwah himself. Barak Yahuwah. So we're going to start now in the 25th chapter of Bereshith, commonly called Genesis. The 25th chapter of Bereshith, commonly called Genesis. And again, we're not going to finish this today because we're starting from the 25th chapter of Genesis, and we're going to read all the way to the end, looking at the life and the walk of YAHUAH. So we're not going to finish this today, but we'll see how far the Ruach allows us to go. I don't want to go too long. I don't want to go too long today, but we'll see what direction the Ruach takes me. Bereshith of Genesis, chapter 25. Bereshith of Genesis, chapter 25. And we're waiting on my Aisha to pull it up.
Okay.
While some of you are searching the index for Genesis. Barak Yahuwah.
Okay.
They don't find that funny no more, little one. Barak Yahuwah. Barak Yahuwah. Bereshith, Genesis chapter 1. Chapter 25, beginning at verse 1. Read, little one.
And Abraham took another wife whose name was Keturah, and she bore him Zimran and Yokshan and Madan.
Abraham, who also was what? Who was perfect, who was born from above. All firstborn sons are perfect. Firstborn are perfect. Read, little one.
Yakshan and Madan and Midian and Yishbak and Shakwa and Yokshan brought forth Shibia and Dadan, and the sons of Dadan were Asherim and Litshuim and Luaim, and the sons of Madan were Afar and Afar and Kanuk and Abda and Alda, and all these were the children of Keturah. Now Abraham gave all that he had to Ishkak.
Oh, he gave all he had to who?
Ishkak.
See, now here you are seeing played out the law of inheritance, which goes to the firstborn. He gets all of the possessions of his father. We don't get the possessions of our father Yahuwah unless we're firstborn. He does not act outside of Torah. He is Torah. He is Torah. And so he has no choice but to operate within himself. And so Torah dictates that the inheritance, that the possessions of the father goes to the firstborn. As we're reading here, the possessions of Abraham were given to Yitzchak, who was not born according to the flesh. He was born according to the free woman, in accordance with Galatians, the 4th chapter. He was born from the Jerusalem above. Ishmael was born according to the flesh. He was firstborn according to the flesh. He didn't get the inheritance. The one that was born according to Ruach, who was born from above, he got the inheritance. And you know what? It is he who was redeemed. Yes, he was. Yitzchak was redeemed by a ram that was slain before the foundation of the earth. He didn't die on that altar. A ram was prepared for him because he was firstborn and he was redeemed. Only the firstborn are redeemed. And so here we see this being played out, the law of inheritance. The firstborn, not according to the flesh, but according to the Ruach, is receiving all the possessions of the father. Read, little one.
But to the sons of the concubines whom Abraham had,
yes,
Abraham gave gifts while he was still living.
Yep, that includes the Ishmael. That includes him. Read.
And sent them away from his son Ishkak
Mm-hmm.
eastward to the land of the east.
Mm-hmm.
And these are all the years of Abraham's life which he lived,
Mm-hmm.
175 years.
Mm-hmm.
And Abraham breathed his last and died in a good old age,
Mm-hmm.
aged and satisfied, and was gathered to his people.
Uh-huh.
And his son Ishkak and Ishmael buried him in the cave of Machpelah,
Mm-hmm.
which is before Mamre,
Mhm.
in the field of Ephron,
Mhm.
son of Sakar the Hittite,
Mhm.
the field which Abraham purchased from the sons of Keth.
Mm-hmm.
There Abraham was buried with Sarah his wife.
Mm-hmm.
And it came to be after the death of Abraham that Elohim blessed his son Ishkak,
Mhm.
and Ishkak dwelt at Bari Lahai.
He blessed Itzchak. He Baruch Itzchak because Itzchak was in every way like Abraham, a son of the rain, a firstborn, not born of flesh and blood, but born of Ruach. Read.
Ooh. And this is the genealogy of Ishmael, Abraham's son, whom
Mhm.
Hagar, the Mitzrayim, Sarah's female servant, bore to Abraham.
Mm-hmm.
And these were the names of the son of Ishmael by their names according to their generations.
Mm-hmm. Do your best, little
Oh,
one.
yes.
Come on. Do your best. Barak Yahuwah.
The
Do your best.
firstborn of Ishmael, Nabai-Uth,
Mhm.
then Kedar, and
Mhm.
Adabal, and Mibash.
Good job. Come on.
Mishma, and Dama, and Masha, and Hadar, and Tima, and Yitzur, and Naphish, and Kadama.
Mhm.
These were the sons of Ishmael, and these were their names by their towns and their settlements, 12 chiefs according to their tribes.
Mm-hmm.
And these were the years of the life of Ishmael, 137 years.
Mhm.
And he breathed his last and died, and he was gathered to his people.
Mm-hmm.
And they dwelt from Kawala as far as Saur, which is east of Mitzrayim, as you go toward Ashur.
Mhm.
He settled before all his brothers.
Mhm.
And this is the genealogy of Ishkak, Abraham's son.
Mhm.
Abraham brought forth Ishkak,
Mhm.
and Ishkak was 40 years old when he took Ribkah as wife,
Rebekah as wife. Listen.
the daughter of Bethuel the Armaim,
Mhm.
of Padam Aram, the sister of Laban the Armaim. And Ishkak prayed to Yahuwah for his wife because she was barren. And Yahuwah answered his prayer, and Ribkah his wife conceived. And within her the children struggled together, and she said, if all is right, why am I this way?
You have that struggle between the firstborn according to the Ruach and the firstborn according to the flesh. And in Galatians 4, Sha'al, he captures this. He says, in that chapter, he's talking about Ishmael and Iskak. But in that, he says, as him who was born according to the flesh, then persecuted him who was born according to the Ruach, so also we. So also we. So again, you see this dynamic being played out. Abba's been teaching us there's only two manner of people. Now he's tailoring that thing down to show us that either you are firstborn according to the flesh or you're firstborn according to the Ruach. Cain was firstborn according to the flesh. Yes, he was, because he was the firstborn son of Adam. Adam was born according to the Ruach. Yes, he was. Yes, he was. And so we still have this dynamic being played out. The sons of the rain, the firstborn sons being born of the Ruach, and the firstborn sons of the earth being sons of Hashatan. We see this being played out in the room, because Esau came out, and although he was firstborn according to the flesh. He was not firstborn according to the Ruach. And only those who are born of the Ruach are going to inherit. And this is why YAHUAH'S inherited, because he was firstborn according to Ruach. Read, little one.
If all is right, why am I this way? So she went to ask Yahuwah. And Yahuwah said to her, 2 nations are in your womb,
Yes.
and 2 people shall be separated from your body.
Yes.
And 1 people shall be stronger than the other, and the older serve the younger.
Yes.
And when the days were filled for her to give birth, and see, twins were in her womb, and the first came out red all over like a hairy garment. So they called his name Ashu. And afterward his brother came out with his hand holding onto Ashu's heel. So his name was called Yaakov.
YAHUAH.
And Ishkak was 60 years old when she bore them. And the boys grew up, and Ashu became a man knowing how to hunt, a man of the field, while Yaakov was a complete man.
Here, that word complete, again, is the Hebrew word tam, which means perfect. which means perfect. And part of the behavior, again, of being perfect, yes, it's obedience to Torah, turning neither to the right or to the left of the Torah, but staying in the way everlasting, which is the ancient path. But it also means what? To be quiet, to be gentle, to be meek, to be mild, to be humble, to be lamb-like. To be lamb-like. This was Jacob. This was YAHUAH'S. And this is the characteristic of all of the sons of the rain, all of the sons and daughters of the rain who have been born from above. This is their characteristic. So YAHUAH'S, again here, is being described as being perfect. And Yahuwah has shown us that the only way to be perfect, which is to be born from above, and this in turn is the only way to be considered a firstborn son. This is the only way to be considered his firstborn son, is to be born of Ruach and to be perfect. Read, little one.
While YAHUAH'S was a complete man,
he was a perfect man. He was a perfect man. Read.
And Ishkak loved Ashu because he ate of his wild game. But Rivkah loved YAHUAH'S. And YAHUAH'S cooked a stew, and Ashu came in from the field, and he was weary. And Ashu said to YAHUAH'S, please feed me with that same red stew, for I am weary.
See here? He's worried about the flesh. He's firstborn according to the flesh. YAHUAH'S is firstborn according to the Ruach. He's concerned with his flesh. Read.
This is why his name was called Adam. But YAHUAH'S said, sell me your birthright today.
Adum.
And Ashu said, look, I am going to die, so why should I have a birthright?
He's selling his birthright over his flesh. Over his flesh. Why? Because that's what firstborn according to the flesh do. They operate in the flesh because they have not the Ruach. And they are not his sons. They are not the sons of the rain. They are not the sons of Yahuwah, being born according to the Ruach, and they are not perfect. This is not the perfect behavior of a son of the rain. This is not the perfect behavior of a firstborn son. Read, little one.
And YAHUAH'S said, swear to me today. And he swore to him and sold his birthright to YAHUAH'S.
Over a morsel of food. Firstborn according to the flesh, firstborn according to the Ruach. Two dynamics still being played out. Read.
YAHUAH'S then gave Ashu bread and stew of lentils, and he ate and drank and rose up and left. Thus Ashu despised his birthright.
Thus Esau, Ashu, despised his birthright. And see, and so here we have the continuation, which began with Cain, what began with Adam, who was begot of Elohim, not of flesh and blood, but begot of Elohim, who was his firstborn son, and Cain, who was begot of flesh, and by extension, Habal and Seth, who were begot of Elohim as well, who were begot of Ruach in the same manner in which you and I are begot of Ruach. In the same way, they were begot of Ruach. And so we see this dynamic being played out, and we understand now, prayerfully by now, that only the sons of the rain, only the firstborn are going to be redeemed in accordance with Torah, all things accordance with Torah. Only the firstborn in this Muadah, not born of flesh and blood, but born of Ruach, are going to be redeemed and saved from the hour of trial. We're not going to read chapter 26 this week, but what I want someone to do is turn to Jubilees chapter 19 for me. Actually, little one, you can turn to Jubilees chapter 19 for me, and that's going to be our last precept for this week. Abba just wanted to establish this foundation for this week, and this is the foundation that we're going to have going forward, looking at the example of YAHUAH'S. Turn now to Jubilees chapter 19.
Jubilees 19?
Give them a minute to get Jubilees 19 for our YouTube family. Go ahead and hit pause and go get Jubilees 19. Barak Yahuwah. While we continue to look at the example of YAHUAH'S. How are we looking for time?
1:34.
Barak Yahuwah. So we're going to end here this week at Jubilees chapter 19. But the foundation has been laid. The gauntlet has been thrown down. For some, you ought to be running for your fig leaves. Understanding that you ain't firstborn unless you're born from above. You know, you can fool yourself, but your fruit tells the type of tree that you are. Yes, it does. Yes, it does. You will know them by their fruit. And so you may fool yourself, but you're not fooling Abba. And you're not fooling those of whom he's given his Ruach to, and of whom he's given discernment to. Jubilees chapter 19, beginning at verse 1. Jubilees chapter 19, beginning at verse 1. Go ahead and read, little one.
Okay. And in the first year of the first week in the 42nd Jubilee, Abraham returned and dwelt opposite Kavrum, that is Karat Abra, 2 weeks of years. And in the first year of the third week of this Jubilee, the days of the life of Sarah were accomplished, and she died in Kavrum. And Abraham went to mourn over her and bury her, and we tried him to see if his root were patient, and he were not indignant in the words of his mouth.
He was a perfect man. Read.
And he was found patient in this and was not disturbed.
Oh, he was perfect. Perfection is found in Galatians 5, 22, 23, the fruit of the Ruach. Perfection is found there. That's really what we're talking about. Yes, it is. Yes, it is. That's perfection, because that's the character and nature of Yahuwah. And Abraham was found to be perfect. Now, we're not talking about him. We talked about him before. But he is relevant because the purpose or the direction that we're going in his teaching is that what? Firstborn are perfect. He was firstborn according to the Ruach, and he was a perfect man. Read, little one.
For in the patience of the Ruach he conversed with the children of Kaf, to the intent that they should give him a place in which to bury his dead. And Yahuwah gave him favor before all who saw him, and he besought in gentleness the sons of Kaf, and they gave him the land of the double cave over against Mamre, that is Kavran, for 400 pieces of silver. And they besought him, saying, we shall give it to you for nothing. But he would not take it from their hands for nothing. For he gave the price of the place, the money in full, and he bowed down before them twice.
Listen, he bowed down before them twice. This was a meek man. See, he was Tom. Tom means what? Perfect, gentle, meek, mild, humble, patient, kind, good. We can go on with some more superlatives in accordance with the fruit of the Ruach, but he was all that. And he purchased this cave, and we've talked about this before, and he humbled himself before these men, even though the cave was already his, and the land was already his. He knew it because he knew the promise that Abba Yahuwah had given to him. But he humbled himself yet still, and he humbled himself before men, and he purchased this cave. Indeed, this is a part of being perfect, being humble, meek, mild, gentle, patient, kind. Yes, it is being good to all men, seeking, pursuing shalom with all men, yes, and separateness, for without which no one shall see Elohim. Read, little one.
And after this, he buried his dead in the double cave. And all the days of the life of Sarah were 127 years, that is 2 Jubilees and 4 weeks and 1 year. These are the days of the years of the life of Sarah. This is the 10th trial wherewith Abraham was tried, and he was found faithful, patient in the Ruach.
He was found trustworthy and patient in the Ruach. He was perfect in the Ruach. The opposite word is Ruach. He was a firstborn son, being born from above, and he showed the fruit of a firstborn son. Read, little one.
And he said not a single word regarding the rumor in the land.
Listen.
How that Elohim had said that he would give it to him.
Yes.
And to his seed after him. And he begged a place there to bury his dead.
Even though he knew that the land was his, he humbled himself as a servant and purchased the cave anyway and humbled himself before them. This is the fruit of the Ruach. This is the fruit of a firstborn son. Read.
For he was found trustworthy and was recorded on the heavenly tablets as the friend of Elohim.
Oh, look at that. He was recorded on the heavenly tablets. Don't you want to be recorded on the heavenly tablets? You should. And as we read in Hebrews 12, unless you're a firstborn son, you ain't recorded on the heavenly tablets. He was a firstborn son, and he showed the fruit of a firstborn son, and he was recorded on the heavenly tablets. Read, little one.
And in the 4th year thereof, he took a woman for his son Ishkak, and her name was Ribkah, the daughter of Bethuel, the son of Nachor, the brother of Abraham, the sister of Laban, and daughter of Bethuel. And Bethuel was the son of Malchah, who was the woman of Nachor, the brother of Abraham. And Abraham took to himself a 3rd woman, and her name was Keturah, from among the daughters of his household servants. For Hagar had died before Sarah, and she bore him 6 sons, Zimran, Yakshan, and Madan, and Midian, Yishbak, and Shak, in the 2 weeks of years.
Good, little one. You did very good. Barak Yahuwah.
And
Come
in
on.
the 6th week, in the 2nd year thereof, Ribkah bore to Ishkak 2 sons, Yaakub and Ashu.
Yaakub and Ashu are Esau. Come on.
And Yaakub was a smooth and upright man.
And Yaakub was a smooth and an upright man.
And Ashu was fierce.
And Ashu was fierce. In other words, Yaakub was perfect. He was upright. He was a smooth and perfect man. Read.
A man of the field, and hairy, and Yaakub dwelt in tents. And in the youths grew, and Yaakub learned to write. But Ashu did not learn, for he was a man of the field and a hunter. And he learned war, and all his deeds were fierce.
Firstborn according to the flesh, firstborn according to the Ruach. Read.
And Abraham loved Yaakub, but Ishkak loved Ashu.
Why did he love Yaakub? Because Yaakub was in every way like him, a firstborn son, born not of flesh and blood, but born of Ruach. And he recognized that in him. Read.
And Abraham saw the deeds of Ashu. Abraham. And he knew that in Yaakub should his name and seed be called.
And he knew that Yaakub that should his name and seed be called, because he recognized that he was a firstborn son of the rain. Read.
And he called Rabkah and gave commandment regarding Yaakub, for he knew that she too loved Yaakub much more than Ashu. And he said unto her, my daughter, watch over my son Yaakub, for he shall be in my stead on the earth, and for a blessing in the midst of the children of men.
Only firstborn sons inherit. Read.
And for the esteem of the whole seed of Shem. For I know that Yahuwah will choose him to be a people for possession unto himself above all people that are upon the face of the earth.
Yes, because he is firstborn. And this goes all the way back to the inheritance of Adam, which is the earth. And again, in order to be a firstborn, we must be born as Adam was born. Not according to the flesh, but according to the Ruach. Read.
And behold, Ishkak my son loves Ashu more than Yaakub. But I see that you truly love Yaakub. Add still further to your kindness to him. And let your eyes be upon him in love. For he shall be a blessing unto us on the earth from henceforth until all generations of the earth. Let your hands be strong, and let your heart rejoice in your son Yaakub. For I have loved him far beyond all my sons. He shall be blessed forever, and his seed shall fill the whole earth.
Oh! Now, Abba gave the whole earth to Adam, his firstborn. But here, Abraham is saying he shall be Baruch, blessed, and his seed shall fill the whole earth. This goes all the way back to Adam, the firstborn. It's all about the firstborn, who are perfect, not born of flesh and blood, but who are born of Ruach. Read.
If a man can number the sand of the earth, his seed also shall be numbered. And all the blessings wherewith Yahuwah has blessed me and my seed shall belong to Yaakub and his seed always. And in his seed shall my name be blessed. And the name of my father Shem, Nuach, Canuk, and Mahalalah, and Enush, and Shaph, and Adam.
And Adam, all firstborn sons. Yes. Not born according to the flesh, but according to the Ruach. Yes. This is the genealogy. Read.
And these shall serve to lay the foundations of the heaven, and to strengthen the earth, and renew all the luminaries which are in the expanse. And he called Yaakub before the eyes of Ribkah his mother, and kissed him and blessed him, and said, Yaakub, my Yaakid.
My Yaakid, which is to say, my beloved, or my only begotten. Yahid. Yasha'al is the Yahid of Yahuwah, as Yahusha is described as the Yahid, but he came as Yasha'al, his firstborn. Read.
Whom my soul loves, may Elohim bless you from above the expanse, And may he give you all the blessings wherewith he blessed Adam and Canute and
Wait a
Ruach.
minute. All the blessings by which he Baruch who?
Adam, Canute, and Ruach.
All firstborn sons. This is the firstborn inheritance that is only given to firstborn sons, because only the firstborn inherits. Not born according to flesh and blood, but according to Ruach. Read.
And all the things of which he told me, and all the things which he promised to give me, may he cause to cleave to you and to your seed forever, according to the days of heaven above the earth. And the Ruach of Mastama shall not rule over you or over your seed, to turn you from Yahuwah,
Barak Yahuwah,
who is your Elohim from henceforth forever. And may Yahuwah Elohim be a father to you, and you the firstborn son.
What? What does it say?
Yahuwah Elohim be a father to you, and you the firstborn son.
And you the firstborn son. I told you he was firstborn according to the Ruach, and whereby he received the Barakut of Yahuwah. He received the inheritance of the Father, which is the entire earth. His seed receiving the Barakut, which is to say blessings of the Father Yahuwah, which is the entire earth. We see playing out in Yasha'al the redemption and the restoration of Adam, his firstborn, who was not born of flesh and blood, but of Ruach. Read, little one.
And to the people always, go in shalom, my son. And they both went forth together from Abraham. And Yishak loved Yaakov with all her heart and with all her soul, very much more than Ashu. But Ishkak loved Ashu much more than Yaakov. I think that's it.
Barak Yahuwah. Barak Yahuwah. So here we've established now that the firstborn are perfect, and they are perfect because they are not the firstborn according to the flesh, but the firstborn according to the Ruach, being born of Ruach, not being contaminated by the contaminated seed of flesh, but being born of Ruach, being born of Ruach, and whereby being born of Ruach, they are perfect. They are now enabled to walk the ancient path, which is the way of perfection, in perfection, and whereby these are the ones in accordance with Torah, in accordance with Exodus chapter 13, he only redeems firstborn sons. These are the ones in this Muadah in whom he is coming to redeem. Next week, Yahuwah willing, we'll continue to look at the walk of Yaakov and ensure that our walk aligns with his, and ensuring that our walk aligns with his, who was perfect, who was called perfect. Then by extension, that will ensure that our walk is aligning with Yahushua HaMashiach, who was too perfect, and in turn is aligning with Yahuwah himself. Abba, I thank you for this day. I thank you for this Shabbat gathering. We so love your Shabbat, Abba. We love it. It's not grievous to us. It's not a hard thing to do. We just love to please you. And we love observing your Shabbat Yom. You gave the Shabbat Yom for mankind. From your storehouse of compassion, you gave it to us to rest from our labors. And we enjoy resting with you and learning from you and sitting at your feet. It is my prayer, my master, that the word that you have prepared, that this seed that has been thrown, that none of the seed has fallen by the wayside, that none of this seed has fallen on stony ground, that none of the seed has fallen amongst thorns, but that this seed is fallen on fertile soil, tilled soil, fertilized soil, such as to be conducive to receive these words of life, in which if we intake these words of life, these seeds of life, that they will grow up and to become a mighty tree, producing the fruit that leads to everlasting life, and will lead to us, your firstborn sons, and your daughters, and the children, and the strangers attached to us, will lead to us being rescued and delivered from the hour of trial. It is my prayer, Abba, that this word, that not one single seed or word spoken through the mouth of your servant will fall to the earth void, but that each word will go forth and accomplish that which you have purposed it to do. In the name, in the Basham of Yahushua HaMashiach, so be it, so be it, so be it. To those of you on YouTube, once again, we're grateful that you have joined us on the Shabbat. Some of you are pretty common to this now. Some of you may be new. I pray that as we continue this journey of perfection, that you would continue with us and that you would continue to spend the Shabbats with us, Barak Yahuwah, that you've heard something that has edified you, that you've heard something in the words of one of my beloved, that a proverbial fire hose have been turned on, and that you've learned something new, that your eyes have been opened to something new. But until the next time, Yahuwah barak you and guard you. Yahuwah make his face shine upon you and show favor unto you. Yahuwah lift up his face upon you and give you shalom. Thus you shall put my name on the children of Yasha'al, and I myself shall barak them. So be it, so be it, so be it. Shalom.